Okay, we call the meeting of the Committee of the Whole today, Tuesday, March 6th. Madam Clerk,
Yeah,
please
they're
call
going
the
to executive.
Trustee Brewer. Here. Trustee Grant. Here. Trustee Jones. Here. Trustee Tate. Trustee Todd. Here. Trustee Zuma. Here.
Okay, our first presenter is Mr. Charles Dorm from Kane McKenna, and also Mr. Robert Vale. Is he available? Is he here?
Robert's here. Chuck's on his way.
Okay. Well, you're going to be the one that we need to talk to mainly. And for everyone, Mr. Vale is the principal officer of Bernardi Securities. So he's here to explain to you what we're trying to get involved in and explain to everyone the tax anticipation bond that we're trying to get from Bernardi Securities. Yeah, no.
Okay. Now,
Ain't working on.
yeah.
It's on, but yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, good evening. I'm, as the Mayor mentioned, I'm Bob Dale with Bernardi Securities. We have underwritten bond issues for the village in the past, I think going all the way back to right around 1999 or 2000. I'm here tonight to go through some of the items on the agenda in regards to tax anticipation warrants that the village is contemplating issuing. Some of the documents that you have in front of you in your packet are engagement documents for the various professional services for the warrants. Those being Kane McKenna, which is your municipal advisor, and that's Chuck Durham, who will be here shortly, I think in a few minutes. Also, our engagement documents as placement agent on the warrants, so that's the engagement with Bernardi Securities as placement agent. Also, the engagement documents for Ice Miller, which is the law firm that you'll be using as your bond counsel and your disclosure counsel. So those are the three engagement letters that would need approval for those parties to begin the process of issuing the warrants. Also in front of you is a draft of the ordinance. So the ordinance is set up as a parameters ordinance that lays out not to exceed numbers on the warrants. So not to exceed dollar amount, not to exceed interest rates. And then at the sale of the warrants, when the final terms of the warrants are actually negotiated with the bank, those numbers would then be replaced, those dummy numbers then would be replaced with the actual numbers. From a timing standpoint, what we're looking at is we just started drafting the documents, and we're looking at a timing for everything to wrap up by the end of March, very first part of April. So we're looking to lock in the interest rate on the warrant and get the purchaser on board, transfer the funds, get everything wrapped up here by the first part of April. With that, that's really kind of the 1,000-foot level on what the warrants are. And I'll let Chuck maybe do some additional commentary here on the warrants. He's your municipal advisor. We've been working with Chuck on the issue as well. And then I know Chuck's got some additional info in regard to the abatement ordinances he'll get into as well. But I think that's the next action item. With that, Chuck, welcome.
Talk a little slower. Give him that few extra seconds.
I give everybody a real quick overview of the issue, the engagement documents in front of them, the ordinance, kind of the timing on where we're at, and with that, anything additional you'd like to add?
Honestly, that sounds like just about covers it. We just want to perhaps say a couple of things. First of all, the timing of this bond issue is we're trying to get things accomplished for the village as soon as possible. The goal would be to accomplish the bond in the mid part of April. So it's a very fast pace, and we run things pretty quickly to have the team understand that. The other thing I want to emphasize is in addition to the proposed amount of the issue of 550,000, which would be the maximum that could be.
Can you speak up?
Oh, sorry.
Can't hear.
In addition to the maximum amount of 550,000, which is the most you should do, within that would be included the cost of issuance. So we put together a professional team that has committed to the village that we will get this done at the expense of below 40,000, which is a very aggressive bid for services for initial registration. But we committed that to the mayor and we were prepared to follow through with that. Bob, I don't know if there was anything else on it. Bob? Okay. Bob mentioned, so we're asking the committee for a couple of things. First of all, you have in your package engagements letters from our firm, King Capital, Bob's firm, Bernard Security, and also from my Miller, which is a legal firm. The roles would be that our role, and we play this role for the village before we do as your municipal advisor, so that our goal is would be to advise you that the deal that's being placed on the market is a reasonable deal and something that either you should or shouldn't do. We'll be able to do those recommendations. Bernard Security, who Bob represents, would be the village's placement agent. They would be responsible for finding the investor to buy the lands, to provide the village rental funds. Ice Miller would serve the dual role. They would be both bond counsel and disclosure counsel, which are both important roles with respect to any security issue.
Yes,
You can hear.
There would be, ICE would be both bond counsel and disclosure counsel, which is a very important role to get any issuance done necessary under federal rules and guidelines of the SEC as well as IRS to make sure that the issuance is tax exempt so that you would get the lowest possible cost for borrowing the funds. With that, I think I would like to just open it up for questions for Bob and myself.
Okay, any trustee has any questions for Mr. Dillon?
How many tranches do
You
you
got this.
anticipate?
Tranches?
Yeah, I saw that it's open to multiple series, so how many
Okay,
are you
it's-
anticipating?
We anticipate one tranche. So you want our own. We'd like to have that flexibility in case something happens in the market, we have to bifurcate it, but we don't anticipate that happening. So it's going to be one by one.
So the going-in position is one for the entire amount, and only if you can't find someone with that level of interest would you break it up?
To have that flexibility, but we do not expect that. Correct.
What are we using for collateral?
You're using the general obligation of the village. You're using the good name of Sauk Village, promising the investor that you will pay it back. Number one. Number two, the other security is going to be a pledge of your tax revenues that come in tax levy year 2017, 2018. The investor will have a first claim on those in terms of repayment of debt. So, in essence, what you're doing, you're making an advance to yourself out of the next future tax levies, and you're going to pay back that advance out of the revenues that you receive in the future.
Any other questions? Also, could you explain that it would not be due all at one time?
Yes. What we're proposing that you consider is two payments back to the investor with the first installment being due in the fall of 2018, the second installment being due in the spring of 2019. That is being recommended to provide you flexibility in your future cash flow. What we don't want to happen is when you borrow this amount of money, and then when the fall comes, you have to turn around and pay all back. So we're basically recommending to pay 50% in the fall of 2018, the other 50%
Mike,
in the spring of 2019.
can't hear him.
Do you have a date or you said fall, spring, in general?
Yeah, let me be more specific. We would anticipate the first installment being paid back to the investor probably in August or September 2018. And the second installment being paid in March or April 2019. It coincides to when you have tax revenues coming in.
Okay, so what you're asking, this is what I want to make sure that we are voting on to go forth with this, and once you find someone, quite naturally, we will come back and the terms may or may not change. I don't think they should be, but we're just getting a vote, put it on and vote on it next week that we go forth with this, and quite naturally, before we sign anything, that it'll be brought back to the board. But it's,
yeah, well. The way this particular ordinance is written, it would be written, it's being proposed in a manner that parameters are set. In other words, there are certain levels that it cannot exceed.
okay.
So what this board would be saying is, as long as you don't exceed those levels, and we expect under all of them, the mayor is an authorized officer of the village. He is authorized to go ahead and sign the deal. The reason that's important is for speed, to get it done quickly. However, if the board is comfortable, once we have the terms settled, we'd be happy to come back and present those terms to the village board. But again, for expediency, this would be authorized.
Yeah, and that makes sense because it may be in between a time that we may have to wait another 2 weeks, and once we get the okay that they're ready to do this, I don't want to wait any longer with that. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I'm going to rely on a really dusty memory, only because I was clerk when we did an issuance of the previous bond, that it's the one vote, we approve it, if we proceed, then you go ahead and act on our behalf, and then they do all their work, and then there's a sense of urgency when we get to closing, because that's when all the official documents with the real terms have to be certified and turned around and filed with all the appropriate agencies.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee. That's absolutely right.
Any other questions?
Are there any late fees or penalties get paid if we haven't had problems getting taxes, property taxes back?
Did everybody hear that?
So is there any late fees or penalties?
They can't hear you out there, trustee.
Yeah, I think the question was, would there be any late fees if, for whatever reason,
Like paying,
the payments were late or short? And that's why we're structuring the issue the way we are, so it's split up 50-50 and coinciding after the tax collections come back to the village with a number that's relatively low compared to what the village is collecting in property taxes. So there would need to be there would have to be a pretty large shortfall in tax revenues for that not to be made. But then if that did happen, then there would need to be, we would need to negotiate terms with the purchaser of those warrants and explain why that happened, and then go down that path. But currently we don't expect that, and that's not part of the warrant issue up front.
Okay. All right, then, thank you guys very much. So Mr. Durham, I know you're going to be here for the next one. But, Mr. Vail, I really appreciate you coming out. We're going to put this on the ballot, we're going to put it on the agenda next week to be voted on.
Sure. You got my cards?
Yes, we do. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, Mr. Durham, you're up next to explain the abatement of the bonds that we have already. We do this every year. We did it last year, we do it every year to abate the bonds that we have with the money that we got from our TIFs. And without further ado, you can explain, or give them a quick summary and then go from there.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor indicated, this is a duty that the village board performs each year. The village has outstanding several bond issues. The issues we're talking about tonight are primarily those bond issues that are associated with TIF number 2 and 3. The reason that is important is that those bond issues rely upon the tax increment financing that is raised by those 2 TIF districts. Each year, the proceeds from those TIF districts goes to a trustee, an amalgamated bank, who holds the funds on behalf of the village. The key to that is this. When the bonds were issued, the village agreed to put on the books at the county annual levies. The levies were intended as a promise to the investors that the village would raise the funds necessary to pay for debt service on each of the bond issues. In this case, the good news is that the village always intended to abate those levies. In other words, by abate, we need to essentially cancel those levies so that those levies would not reach the taxpayers of Sauk Village. And the reason that's possible is because of what I just mentioned with respect to TIF 2 and 3, accumulating funds necessary to pay the debt service on the bonds. So each year, approximately in November, the trustee does an accounting and issues a report. And based on that report, we know whether or not the village has sufficient funds on hand to pay debt service for these bonds or not. So this is really a good news item in that we're here tonight to confirm that the funds are on hand to pay the debt service. Therefore, we would recommend that you abate these 4 ordinances so that these levies do not reach the taxpayers of the village.
And as we've done ever since these bonds have been in existence, we've been fortunate enough to take it from TIF, and we have to vote on that next week. That'll be something that we will have on the agenda also to abate these bonds.
Right, and I'll just add, the reason we're here tonight is that the county has set a deadline of April 2nd to file these ordinances. So it is rather crucial that you pass it at your next meeting so that we can immediately file with the county so we can make sure that these levies are canceled before April.
Are there any questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, that could also go on to next week's agenda. Mr. Durham, thank you so very much, and we appreciate it, both you and Mr. Vail, and thank you also for, and Mr. Vail, thank you also for doing what you're doing as far as getting these bonds together for us. Appreciate that.
Thank you, sorry for being
Okay, next presenter is the Miller Cooper, Ms. Sharon, Susan Jones, okay. Ms. Susan Jones, I don't know, I've seen her many times, I don't know why I'm bad. She's here to explain the audit. Everyone got a copy of the audit. However, I have bounded copies now that, did anyone, I'll put it this way. I don't know if she's going over every single page, but I do have copies of the finished audit right here that I'm going to pass around to all the trustees now. This is your copy that you get from Miller Cooper. And
It's the same man up in front. He's the same one that used to be. He's the same one.
yeah, okay. Like I said before, you got a copy before. These are the finished products, and she's going to go over a few things. And that also, we would have to put this on the agenda next week to accept the audit. Can you? I know, I don't want everybody to start howling at you because they don't hear you.
It works better if you hold the mic.
She may not want to feel.
Okay, so there's 3 deliverables that we issue as part of the whole audit process. As the mayor mentioned, is the bound audited financial statements, and then 2 letters. One of the letters is our required communications to the trustees, and then another letter is a recommendation letter on best practices in improving controls. I'm going to go through the audit report first, and that's the blue bound document. And if you turn past the table of contents on page 1, and this goes on for pages 1 through 3, this is our audit opinion, which is referred to as an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance the village can receive. There's a couple things that I do want to point out in the opinion. On the second page, there was a restatement at the beginning of the year, accounts payable balances that increased fund balance of the village. And then the other thing I wanted to point out in the opinion is this year, management put together a management's discussion and analysis, MD&A. Historically, they've excluded that from the audit report, and because of that, there was always an extra opinion, an extra paragraph saying that's a requirement and it was excluded. But this year, management did in fact put that together, and that's on pages 4 through 13 of the report. Again, this management's discussion and analysis is really like the cliff notes of the financial report. It goes through all the significant funds, changes from the prior year. And given the report is extensive, it's over 100 pages, this is a good summary if you wanted to go through. So past management's discussion and analysis is page 14, the statement of net position. On a combined basis, there's a net deficit of $13.6 million at the end of April 30th, 2017. There's positive net position, the business type activities, which is the sewer and the water funds. And then the governmental activities, there's a net deficit of about $20 million. The statement of net position is what's referred to on a full accrual basis, and that means all the long-term assets and liabilities of the village are included on the statement. Turning to the next page is a statement of activities, which shows all the total revenues and expenses of the village. Total revenues were about $17.1 million, and total expenses for fiscal year 17 was about $12.1 million. Overall, if you look at page 16, there was an overall increase in net position government-wide of about $4.9 million, so $4,952,612. Turning to page 17 and 18, page 17 is what's referred to as the balance sheet or the governmental funds. So this is presented on a modified accrual basis. So all the long-term assets of the village and long-term debt of the village are excluded. This is more of what you see on an interim basis. It's more of a cash basis. But on a combined basis, fund balance of all the governmental funds was $11,564,992. And page 18 is an informative reconciliation. It reconciles the balance sheet on a full accrual basis to the fund balance on a modified accrual basis. And you can see the biggest differences are that long-term assets, and so all the capital assets, all the infrastructure assets, and all the debt of the village. Turning to page 19 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So this is basically all the revenues that have come into the village during fiscal year 2017. offset by all the expenditures, and then any transfers in or transfers out. So on a combined fund balance, there was an increase of about $859,000. At the end of the year, again, fund balance on a combined basis is about $11.6 million. On page 21 and 22, this shows just the balance sheet and the revenues and expenses of the water and sewer fund. The columns to the right tie up to the statement of activities and the statement of position on the statements that we went through. This just shows a little bit more detail of the activity going through the water and the sewer fund. As you can see on page 22, there was an increase in net position on a combined water sewer fund basis of about $3.5 million during fiscal year 2017. Page 23 and 24 is just the cash flow of the proprietary funds, again, the water and sewer funds. And then on page 25 and 26 shows more detail of the fiduciary funds, which basically is the pension trust funds, the fire, the assets and liabilities of the fire and the police pension funds. Total net position of the pension trust funds was about $5.5 million at the end of April 2017. On page 27 and 28, this is another index related to the footnotes of the financial statements. And so basically the footnotes to the financial statements takes each individual line item of all the financial statements that we just went through and gives you a little bit more detail. If you look on page 30, the footnotes to the financial statements is a lot of pages. It goes from page 30 all the way through 95. There were no significant new accounting policies adopted during the year, no significant changes in accounting policies. I just want to point out a couple of the footnotes just so you know where they're located. On page 54 and 55, note G, this just shows the all the capital assets of the village broken out between governmental activities, and then on page 55 is all the business type activities, so all the capital assets in the water and sewer fund. It shows what the beginning of the year balances were, and then all their activity to the end of the year. Turning to page 61. This is note K. This is a summary of all the long-term liabilities of the village. Again, it's broken out between governmental activities at the top, as well as proprietary or the water or sewer fund liabilities on the bottom. And it breaks out all the different bond issues and all the different types of long-term debt. One thing I wanted to point out is on bottom page 61 is the Illinois EPA loan started the year with a balance of about $4.2 million. A majority of that was forgiven, so the village didn't have to pay about $3.3 million because it was forgiven. So the ending balance is $866,000. And there's more detail over the next several pages related to the different types of issues and the descriptions related to that.
Mr. Hanks? Yeah, thanks to him.
Turning to page 70, note O. This just discloses all the individual fund balances of the village that had a deficit balance. So it lists out the general fund had a deficit fund balance of about $1.8 million at the end of the year. And then note P goes on for several pages, and that discloses all the information related to the various pension liabilities of the village. So all the liabilities related to IMRF, the police, and the fire pension. Turning to page 96. This is another section of the report called Required Supplemental Information. This goes into a deeper dive on the next several pages. This information is required by auditing standards to be included in the report. And it shows all the detailed information related to the IMRF pension fund. As you can see at the bottom of page 96, the IMRF pension liability is about 91% funded. IMRF does a good job over the years of, keeping that plan funded. And then on page 104 is similar information for the police pension fund. And you can see that pension liability is about 35% funded. The last section of the report that I just wanted to show you starts on page 109. It's just additional information. It goes through each of the major funds of the village, and it shows what the original budget was, what was actually incurred during the year, and then the variances. So if you wanted any more detailed information on the revenues that are coming in or the expenditures by fund, you could look at these back pages. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements before I move on to the letters?
Can you go back to page 62? These are long-term debts. These refer to bonds. And the dollar amount we have aside, is that the balance on these
Use
bonds?
the mic.
Use your mic, please.
Page 62. Can you explain what's going on with page 62?
Sure. So on page 62, if you look actually on page 63, there's a total of $30,411,367. Those are all the village's total alternate revenue bonds. And so page 62 is basically listing out each of the individual bond series, some summary information on when they're due, the annual debt service payments, and basically what's outstanding at the end of the year for each of those issues. That 30 million ties to page 61, which is a summary. If you look at the fourth column over at the top, you can see alternate revenue bonds, 30,411,367. And so basically that's what the next couple pages after that summary schedule do, is just gives more information on the individual type of bond issues and the interest rates. Any other questions? So the next letter I'd like to go through is just our required communications letter. That starts out in bold, our responsibility under auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. We executed our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. We issued an opinion on the reasonableness of the financial statements. Although during our planning and execution of our audit procedures, we do consider the village's internal controls. We don't issue a separate opinion on the village's internal controls. But based on our understanding of internal controls, we did identify some material weaknesses and significant deficiencies that are reported in our other letter. Turning to the next page, our firm is independent of the village. All significant accounting policies have been disclosed in the notes to the financial statements. Turning to page 3, there's a series of GASB statements listed out here on pages 3 and 4. They're going to have to be implemented by the village over the next series of 2 to 4 or 5 years. We'll work with management to make sure they're properly implemented. None of them are expected to have a significant impact. It's just more disclosures. The one thing that will change next year is GASB 75, where the unfunded OPEB liabilities, so the healthcare liabilities will be reported in the statement of net position, similar to how the pension liabilities had to be recorded into the statement of net position a few years ago. Turning to page 4, significant accounting estimates. We review all of management's methodologies related to all the significant accounting estimates that impact the financial statements, many of them being related to the assumptions going into the pension liabilities, and we find all those methodologies to be reasonable. The audit did take longer than expected. We were waiting for the audit of the police pension fund, as well as just waiting for schedules from management with regard to reconciliations and things like that. But management, we've already talked to them, and they're putting in a plan in place so we can accelerate the timing of the audit for fiscal year 18. On page 5 and 6, we are required to document any differences that we identified that were not recorded in the financial statements. There are some minor differences that we identified here that we concur with management are immaterial to the net position of each of the particular major funds. The most significant being there's a self-insurance retention of $50,000 that should have been accrued in the financial statements, as well as some unreconciled cash allocation across funds, but they're immaterially and individually and in the aggregate immaterial to the financial statements as a whole. Turning to page 7, kind of in that middle section, we talk about we recorded over 60 audit adjustments in conjunction with those identified by management during the audit, as well as ourselves. And we had no disagreements with management, and that really discloses all the information that I'm required to go through with you per auditing standards. The next letter that I want to go through at a high level is our management letter. We discussed the management letter in detail with the mayor and the treasurer, as well as the finance director. So overall, at a high level, we identified a couple material weaknesses. As I mentioned, there were several audit adjustments made during the audit, and that's primarily a result of a lot of the account balances weren't reconciled during the year on a timely basis, and when we came out to audit, they weren't reconciled. So on page 2, there's kind of a detailed bullet list of things that management's going to work on putting in place during the course of fiscal year 2018. So it's all the significant account balances are reconciled when we come into audit this year. The other item relates to the lack of segregation of duties. We're required by auditing standards to inform the trustees if there's a lack of segregation of duties. So ideally, you want anyone that has access to the cash or bank statements not to also have the ability to record things in the general ledger. It's not uncommon for an entity, whether it be a not-for-profit, a government entity, a commercial entity, with the limited resources and the number of people in the finance department to have segregation of duties issues, so we're just required to disclose it. And as long as there's checks and balances and appropriate compensating controls, you could kind of reduce the risks associated with those segregation of duties. Currently, we have this as a material weakness because there's not a lot of compensating and controls in place currently, but that could be reduced down if there's budget to actual procedures done, if people are reviewing reconciliations and that kind of thing. But the most significant things that I just want to touch upon is just because the finance director has access to a lot of, preparing a lot of the journal entries, recording a lot of information in the general ledger, he really shouldn't be an authorized signer, or there should be like a dual check signing policy to put a check and balance on that. And then the last item that I want to show, go through is on page 8. This is more of just a best practice recommendation. It relates to technology and data security. As we go out and execute all our audits, whether that be for governments or not-for-profits or real estate entities, all these phishing scams are becoming more and more sophisticated, and these scammers are intercepting emails from like the mayor or the finance director, or like they know when people are on vacation. So you just gotta be very cognizant of your IT security, and you can't just look at it once a year. You need to make sure people are following the policies and procedures related to passwords and what they click on, and they're knowledgeable, because it is costing money to all sorts of entities related to these phishing scams. And I always like to inform everybody, if you have any questions throughout the year for us, not just at audit time, to feel free to give us a call. That concludes my formal presentation.
Are there any questions from trustees?
Just have a comment, maybe more of a question to you, Mayor. Under the management letter where all these findings are, I keep seeing repeat from prior year over and over and over. So I obviously very concerned. Do you have any idea how long some of these have been recurring issues?
I can only say years. This is the 2017 year. In other words, this is the last fiscal year. And we put some of these things to rest, so next year you will probably see over half of this cut. Because some of the things that she was telling us, as far as the ability for someone to, we've done that. We've changed it, how we're going to, and how the checks are signed. Now and that, who can sign off. And the finance director now is an emergency only. We have a treasurer now that we have, and that would be the third person, so it's not needed. And some of the other things that were put in, during this period of going over the audit and doing the audit period, there was a lot of things that weren't reconciled that we put into place now. So there were some things that was actually just stated over and over and over, and we looked at that and we found out what we need to do to change that. So next year, a lot of these will not be in there.
Okay, so I'm going to continue my comments, if I may, please. Taking from my own background and having participated in multiple audits, we would have an action plan that would generally be a spreadsheet that would show the finding, the severability of it, how serious the finding was, and we would update that spreadsheet with, plan of action, due dates, and follow up on each and every one of those. So for these 27 items that have been highlighted, I would love to see, if it hasn't already been started, that either the treasurer or the finance director start such a spreadsheet so that we can maybe once a month as a board receive an update from them on progress on each and every one of these items.
And that is going to happen. As a matter of fact, that was one of the reasons why I did what I did as far as the treasurer, to get her more involved, so they can have that available for all the trustees. That they can see what's going on. The reports are going to be out. I think they're already in the process of doing that, so you can see where your financials are each and every month, not just accounts payable when it comes out, but we're going to each department head to make sure that we are on target, and if not, why?
Well, I'm not necessarily talking about the financials, I'm talking about these findings.
Yes, that's what I was saying. I started that already. So as we were going through this audit, there was a lot of things that drew a lot of red flags, and I wanted to know why we didn't do this prior. So rather than that, moving forward, we're gonna actually do this now.
Trustee, to your point, we did put together a spreadsheet, and for each deficiency or weakness, we did put together a signed person and a team, and we will handle these on one basis going forward. I do have a question though, on some of the new findings that were not from the people last year. Is it just a new finding because it's a new finding, or did they actually just get worse this fiscal year versus the previous fiscal year? For example, I'm looking at number, sorry. Like for example, 14, personnel files, or number 10, bank reconciliations. So I think those are the new ones.
It's not necessarily that you got worse, but maybe the sample that we tested, we found an error, and we brought it to your attention to clean up.
Also, can you turn to page 61 in the book?
Did you say 61?
61. So for the alternate revenue bonds, for the balance of April 30th, 30,411,367. And then if you turn to the next page, 63, we have 30,611,367. So I think there's a typo somewhere toward the bottom. This one.
Adds 200,000, so 30,611,367.
Mm-hmm. And then it's 30,411,367 on the other page. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, because those are different type of bonds, so it's just a subtotal.
You want to take the mic?
I think one of the problems that we were having, that we didn't have a day-to-day reconciliation person that would, address issues like, if this person has been paid or something like that, or either to recommend that some of the customers on the agent report be reduced because we know we're not going to get any money from them. So would it behoove us to hire a person that does reconciliations on a day-to-day basis, especially with the garbage and the water bill?
With regard to accounts receivable reconciliation?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, when the garbage company sends in a billing, they might not ask for everything they're entitled to, or we might not pay, so, those sort of things.
Any kind of, on a daily basis, any kind of cash that comes in on a daily basis, that should be reconciled on a daily basis, but just overall, like monthly balances don't have to be reconciled on a daily basis unless the volume of activity is so enormous in 1 month that you feel you need to break it into, multiple touches during the month.
So you're saying we don't need a person that do day-to-day reconciliations?
I don't know enough about the process to say either way, yes or no. Right now, I don't know how much entails specifically what reconciliations you're referring to.
Garbage, water, MFT funds.
So any cash that's coming in, like actual cash, not just going through the bank, you should reconcile that cash every day, like physical cash. But like bank reconciliations and things like that could be done on a monthly basis.
Any other questions? Susan, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we can put that on to be voted on. And those, and like she just stated, if there's any trustee that has any other questions throughout the year about something, I'm sure she'll try to answer as many as she possibly can. Thank you so much. The next presenter is Ms. Janet Robinson from Oil O' Joy. It's a nonprofit domestic violence community organization located right here in Sauk Village.
That, that's the same one.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me out this evening.
Good evening.
As Mayor stated, my name is Janet Robinson, and I am the founder and administrator for All of Joy House. We are a 501c3 domestic violence organization, and we provide a community response to domestic violence. I am state board certified as a domestic violence professional, as well as a partner abuse intervention professional. As we know, we hear about domestic violence all of the time. Just recently we heard about on the news where a young man killed his parents. Domestic violence is typically with an intimate partner, but it also includes family and household members as well, and children. 1 out of 4 women are victims of domestic violence. And to give you a definition of domestic violence, it is a pattern of abusive behaviors, including physical, emotional, economic, coercion, threats using children. And the core of it is power control. It is someone using power tactics to control another person. It also includes the cycle of violence. Many women stay in those situations because of the cycle of violence. Each victim's cycle is different. And what I mean by that is her abuse may happen maybe on the weekend when her partner has been drinking, or the abusive episode may happen. I had one client, abusive episode happened in spring and summer because her partner wanted to run the streets, so that's when she experienced it. Some women experience it daily. And so because of that, with that cycle, you have the abusive episode, you also have the what we call the honeymoon stage or the reconciliation stage and the tension building stage. After an abusive episode, most abusive partners will come back and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it, I love you, I'll go to counseling. And that is the stage I tell most women is the most dangerous for them, because it gives them a false hope that the relationship will be okay. They think that their partner, this is how he is, all loving, but they really don't understand that the real partner is the abusive partner. I've given you some packets. I see you looking through them. There is a power and control wheel which lists some of the abusive behaviors that I just spoke of. All of Joy House, we've been in existence. We were established in 2005. We moved to Sauk Village in 2013. We provide counseling, individual and group counseling to victims of domestic violence. Typically, our clients are women, but we do know that there are male victims as well. Most male victims won't come forward because of shame, because they are male. But they are victims, can be victims as well. So we provide group and individual counseling. We have a hotline for women to call in. And then also we provide computer literacy to help women with their resumes, and then also to provide interviewing skills as well. We are not a shelter because of the location, but we do provide these services. And currently we're not operating out of the building. We're operating mobile, going to communities, events, libraries to meet with the women, because we do need repairs. Because we are 501c3, our main funding was from a large church in Chicago, and a couple of years ago they pulled back that funding. So most of our funding comes from personal donations as well as fundraisers that we may hold. We provide training, workshops. We do go to the workplaces, different communities to provide information and training for staff and professionals who work with high-risk women and children. We are in the village. We're glad to be in Sauk Village. We do need some assistance so that we can provide even more assistance to women that may be enduring or in that type of situation. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions in regards to what was just explained? You said you need assistance. I always answer the board when that happens. So could you kind of let me know what does that mean?
Well, as I stated, that we have needed repairs. We have some electrical repairs that need to be made in the building and roofing at this time. So whatever assistance, referrals, or and even perhaps a location that we can assist women or meet women, that would be helpful to us as well.
And I'm sorry, where are you located if you talk about all these repairs?
Because for safety reasons, for victims, I don't want, I can give you personally the address, but I don't want to disclose it because it is a safe house, a safe location.
Just like a shelter, though.
Correct, not a
It's strictly for meetings, counseling, they come and go but do not stay.
Correct, correct, correct. And at the time of their appointment, it's not walk-in, so they do need to make an appointment. So at the time of the appointment, the location will be disclosed to them at that time.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, I know you're talking about the maintenance of the building and things, but as far as getting the word out, once, I do it every other month, I have a meeting with all of the pastors in the village.
That's great.
And the next one we have, I'm going to ask you to come and then you can explain it to them so we can get the word out to that. But back, as far as the building maintenance, I don't know what we could do because I don't have anybody that does that and able to, but there may be grants. If that's something that you're looking for, and you said you're for 501c3?
Yes, we are.
Okay, then maybe, if you want to, I also talk to the businesses on a regular basis.
Okay.
And the next time we do that, maybe you might want to come and present that to them and let them know this is what you have, and maybe you can talk to some of those, but we don't have anything that we can donate or give money to as a village. But that would have to come from the private sector, but like I said before, we can put that out there for you, have you come to different things and let them hear what you have to offer and see what they can do that way.
That would be great, absolutely. And hopefully donations will come in through those areas.
Well, that's what everything runs on, But unfortunately, we as a village cannot, because the line will be outside down the street.
Oh, I totally understand. Oh, yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Thank you so much for your
Thank you, Ms. Robinson, and I appreciate it. And I'm sure you'll be getting in touch with me also. And I'll be, like I stated before, I'll be getting in touch with you to let you know some of the activities that are going on. We also have a national nights out. Have a lot of different things that you can come and you can have a table to let people know and be aware of what you have to offer. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, the next presenter. Discussions of grant resolutions, Mr. Joe Wiswani. A resolution authorizing and directing the submission of an application to the Cook County. Illinois is requesting the funds with the Invest in Cook grant funds.
Good evening, everybody. There was an error on the first page of the resolution that you guys have.
Oh.
So it's been fixed. In your packet, the fifth whereas was removed. That's the only change. The application as Exhibit A is not completed yet, but it will be completed for your packet for next week. We've kind of got this put in our lap in terms of, finding a project that is essentially shovel ready for the Invest in Cook grant. So just to give you a little background, we had discussions with President Preckwinkle's office, her staff, about getting some money for the logistics center. Particularly what we're looking for is expanding the CN Railroad spur into the logistics center park on the east side of Mark Collins Drive. Well, moving rail is like moving heaven and earth, so obviously reaching out to Cook County is a good thing. They have agreed to fund the engineering portion on a high level in order to kind of get us to a sketch plan, if you will, of how the rail would look if it's all laid out. In addition, the village owns a parcel of land there, and they've agreed to fund soil borings, which would cost about 10 grand, and a phase 1 environmental study on that land as well. That's probably an additional $7,500. So it's a nice little, bit of money that the village, we're not going to get, but Cook County's paying for this for the village. So that was a good thing. We also had a conference call with Maria from President Preckwinkle's office. She is the head of the economic development segment of her staff. So we're going to be discussing with her getting grant funding, doing a joint grant application with Cook County for Illinois Department of Transportation funds. So I asked Jim Zarnick to join me on that call as well. So that's something that's coming up. But what you're going to be acting on next week is a resolution that just authorizes us to apply for the Invest in Cook grant for the next phase. There's like $8.5 million that's available under the Invest in Cook, so we're going to be applying for approximately $450,000 for additional engineering, which would be kind of phase 2 of a 4-phase part for the logistics center. So are there any questions on that?
Now, you have phase 3, what is phase 3?
Where are we?
On this page right here.
Oh, the grant application, okay. Under the grant application, basically, it's a 3-phase process in terms of the engineering to construction. We're kind of already started in a preliminary first phase with Cook County, in that we're trying to get the preliminary engineering done. Phase 1 would be the engineering. The estimate that was provided to us by our engineer was about $200,000. Phase 2 included additional engineering as well as permits and procurement, if you will. In that phase 2, that would be $250,000. So we're applying for $450,000. The estimated project cost of $2.45 million.
So where does the other 2 million come in?
That's where we're going to be applying for the other grant in conjunction with Cook County. They actually approached us and said, hey, why don't we do this?
So we don't have to use funds to match, or is it, the grant that they're giving us, do we have to anything to match?
No. Under the Invest in Cook guidelines, you're not required to have any match. However, Cook County has already given us essentially $45,000, so it's 10%. So I'm considering that part of our match, that they've already funded this. So why don't you give us more so we can complete the process, basically. But yeah, the grant application will be completed in your packets for the final approval of the resolution.
So we actually asking for 2 million?
No, we're only asking for $450,000 under this. What we'll be pursuing for the rail expansion would be through Cook County in conjunction with that
That's
joint application, yeah.
So none of that's tip money or anything, it's going to be a grant?
Nope, the money that we would be getting through this would be all grant money, 100%. What's that? And that's a very good question. If they only say, well, we'll give you 200, well, then we'll get phase 1 done, and then when we get the grant money application done, we'll be looking at Cook County saying, hey, we got to finish this up. So either their staff will probably jump in at that point to make sure that we get the process done. But this will show a good effort toward that Illinois Department of Transportation grant. That's a tough grant. That is a tough grant to get. So, you know, if we do get to the point where we do submit it, you know, it's going to be very competitive. So, with Cook County backing us, that would be a good thing.
I just want to say, if you go to other communities, and one right next door that's Chicago Heights, you may see a sign that's posted out there that they show once they do this that they've invested. In other words, this project was part of invested in Cook funds, and they do put signs up. So what we're trying to do, and hopefully that we will do, is get this grant, and they can put any sign they want to up there, but that's something that they like to, they being the county, wants to show that they're helping the communities right now. So that's why they do, because it is in a lot of different communities. You'll see it coming in, or you'll see a project being done, and you'll see that sign on the side that says this fund, so this was presented by the investment in Cook and the grant. So that it is very competitive, as he stated. And for us to get that, it would be a real good, because once you do that, just like anything else, then next year you can say, okay, we did this with this, now can we apply for that? And they see that we're trying to do something, not just have a grant, don't have anything to do with, or have anything that you have shovel ready or ready to make that happen.
The second sentence on page 3, it says that Department reserves the right to require matching funds on a sliding scale based on the confidence level of economic need. So there is a chance that the county will be asking us to match funds. I know it probably won't do it with the 450, but that $2 million, I really think that they might ask us for matching funds. Is the second sentence
right? In the application itself, it says the matching funds are not required, you know, in terms of the grant application. The fact that the county has already given us essentially $45,000 essentially would be a match for that.
Well, I'm talking $2 million.
Oh, and as far as the $2 million, the $450,000 would be essentially the village's matching portion, although it's been put up into the whole process. That's how we probably submit the grant. We're going to put this money up if you give us this money. So that's why Cook County came to us and recommended the application.
Except they really gave us all money.
Isn't that right?
See, I'm skeptical.
Well,
They give you all the money.
If they're willing to put up the money and, you know, and give it to us, then I'm willing to take it.
I mean, anybody's willing to take it, but.
Well, that's the nice thing about grants.
Yeah.
But they still reserve the right to require matching funds. And
They can't, it's not
because of the
required that after the
economic
fact,
climate,
if we're submitting the grant application as essentially these are what we're putting up. And, you know, they can't say, well, we want you to do this, and this after the fact. If we submitted it that way, they can't change the rules on us after the fact.
This is just to apply for the grant, though. It doesn't guarantee we're going to get it. It's
Exactly.
just we're applying. That's the nice thing about grants. You apply. You see what you can get.
Next one.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, Madam Clerk, again, put this on there to go forward with this
Thank you
and
very much.
apply for this grant. Okay, the next one is something that we've done every year. This is the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. Money we're applying for this year, and the area that we're looking for will be financially be next year, because right now we're going to use the money that we got from MFT and CDBG, and everywhere else we can get money for to do 223rd Street from Torrance Avenue to Cornell, and then Cornell to Sauk Trail. So that was, hopefully it will be started sometime in the summer. I'm not exactly when, but it will be. So right now we're looking at next year. And what we're going to apply for It's certain portions with, depending on, and I'm gonna say this again, depending on how much money we get. 223rd Street, I think it would be from Shirley to Paxton and then 222nd Place. Anyone that's gone down that area, you can see, and that's what we're trying to apply for monies in the amount of $400,000 to repair that. And, you know, quite naturally, if we get that, we can add that with our MFT motor fuel tax to try to, if there's any cost overrun. But every year we have to have something and we apply every year. So this year, we will be applying for 2018 to get the money to secure that area. There's been a couple of times that we applied for grants when I was CDBG, when I was trustee, and a lot of times they refuse it, but this time I'm gonna keep at it. I'm not gonna just take no for an answer. We're gonna keep reapplying until we get it, because quite naturally we need it. So this is something, like I said, we did it last year for that particular area, so we're going for this particular area this year, and we're using that to apply. Are there any questions on that? Okay. We have a resolution packed up so we can apply for this. And for our CDBG. All right, any, the next item, public comment?
I'm sorry, so does that go on next Tuesday's agenda?
Yes, it goes on next Tuesday agenda so we can apply for it, yes. I'm sorry, yes, I asked Madam Clerk to, okay.
I just want to ask the gentleman, out of curiosity, you know, both of these are resolutions. Why is there a difference between the, you know, why is the format a little different? You know?
Well, right now, which one are you
I
talking
got
about?
the one for Shirley, and then we have the one for the Cook County grant.
Okay, one was just to show you what it'll be when you vote on it, you'll get the actual resolution. And the other one was just put in that format. And like I stated before, you'll have that ahead of time before you vote. It's just that this one was not put in like that, but they're the same. They're going to be resolutions. Pardon me? Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Just out of curiosity.
What happens is different groups develop the resolutions and send them to us. The one that does not, that's very plain, that was sent at the very end of the day. And so I just copied it. But by the time it's actually signed off on and certified, it will be, resolutions generally look like that with the logo. Ordinances have the logo. Resolutions do not. That's how you know the difference. So by the time all of it is finished, they will both have a cover letter on them. The ordinances will only have the logo. The resolutions will not. Okay, but the cover page still has to go, not only on those, but if you look at the other ones that Kate and McKenna sent, they're different from what we usually have as well. So I give you the content now and work on making it so that it's comfortable to everything else that's in our files later. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. All questions and comments will be directed to the mayor. Each speaker may comment on any matter pertaining to the business of Sauk Village. Each speaker is allowed to speak up to 3 minutes and may not engage in debate. Please give us your name when you step up to the mic.
Bernadine Hopkins. This is in regard to Mr. Wizardwadi's presentation. What I wanted to know was, what happens if, let's say, a project is, let's say you get these grant monies and a project is partially completed. I mean, would the village be let's say, liable with regard to completing that project? Meaning that because you're applying for grant monies, it sounds iffy as to whether or not you'll get the full amounts that you're applying for. Now, if you don't have enough to complete this project, does that fall back on the village residents, or, does it fall back on us in some way? That was one of my questions. The other thing was, I'm unclear. The numbers seem to kept changing. I thought at one point you were saying 45,000, and then it was 450,000. I kind of got a little confused about the numbers with regard to these grant applications. So could you help me with that?
Is that it?
Well, yeah, I guess.
No, I'm saying, is that all the questions you have?
Maybe I'm unclear about this aspect too. This is regarding that. These various proposals that are presented by various people, you all don't vote on that tonight? Do you vote on it next week or something? In other words, is there a vote involved with regard to the different presentations that were done tonight? And now I think I'm finished.
Okay, first off, if I think I get this right, you asked about the amount of money in the grant. If the project is X amount, say for instance the project is $1 million, we ask for a grant for $1 million. We don't get $1 million, then that project has to be augmented to fill, in other words, to whatever it is that we have. No, we don't pay the difference. No, we're not going to go out there and get the money from somewhere, and no, it's not going to cover the taxpayers for that particular project that we ask to have it granted, have the grant paid for. However, if it's something that we're doing, then quite naturally it is coming from the taxpayers. As far as the amount, I think you said something like it is $400,000 that we're asking for. If we get $200,000, then we'll be able to do $200,000 worth of work. So it's not that we have to change it. It has to fit to what we have. There is no bank, there is no anything that we're going to subsidize. That'll be it. So if it's that, then we have to, may not be able to do A through Z, maybe do A through F or whatever. And as far as being voted on tonight, is a committee meeting. Tonight is a meeting that we're discussing what we're going to bring next week. Second and fourth Tuesdays of the month when we take care of business. That's our business meeting. We take care of the board votes on things they've heard prior to that, or anything that may come before that they heard prior to, which usually is our committee meeting. So we usually discuss everything at our committee meeting, go over questions and answers. They have a chance every week to look at it. If they have any questions during that week, quite naturally they need to come and ask whoever it is that's involved. Next week we'll put it on the agenda for certain things that we're voting on to be voted on. Some things may not be voted on. Some things someone may ask to have it held up or stayed until they get better clarification. That itself has to be voted on. Okay? Thank you.
Well, wait. The clarity about the numbers, the 45,000 and the 4.
Where did you see 45,000?
No, I didn't say it. I saw anything.
I didn't hear anything that said 45,000.
Mr. White, he said something about 45,000, and then he said something about 450,000. That's where I said I stated I was confused, and I asked you to clarify.
In this particular resolution, it was a resolution for the amount of 450,000. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next, anyone?
Hey, Charlie Williams, Sauk Village. I just want to bring to the board's attention the interest on the west side of Village Hall. The entrance, the doors, the handicap buttons aren't working, and those doors can be mighty heavy. So I just want to bring to attention again, the handicap parking on the west side of Village Hall is inoperable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll start with the comments from the trustees, board of trustees. We'll start with Trustee Tate. Okay, Trustee Grant. Trustee Zupan.
Public Safety Committee meeting tomorrow night, 6 p.m. right here in the Rotunda.
Trustee Brewer.
Mr. Mayor, yesterday when I got home, I got a letter in the mail from the state of Illinois indicating that I owe $143. And I asked Mohan to take a look at it. So my question is to you, because I didn't know the bill was there. My tenants didn't know the bill was there. The bill was doubled because I didn't go to court because I never got any notice. My question is to you, we need to start looking at the way we billing residents, because it seems to me that residents are being penalized for notices they don't get. Everybody knows I don't live at that house anymore, and I don't understand why I would get a bill, and I got it in the mail, and I think they say this happened back in December, and I know there's no grass cutting in December, so I'd like to know why I got the bill and why it was double, never notified, the tenants were never notified. So this is not only my issue, it's been going along a lot with residents in the village. That's why I asked the representative from Miller to, you know, what are we doing about reconciling issues like that when we have a bill from, I guess the attorneys or whoever sent the bill and it was sent to the state, never knew about it. And that's not fair to residents. So I'd like to know what's going to be done to reconcile those kind of issues. You know, when residents come up and say they never saw the bill, I never saw the bill, I would have paid the bill, you know. I don't even know what the bill is for. Mohan says probably for grass cutting, but he's supposed to get back to me about it. But the point is being that never got notified. Never went to court because I never got notified. And it's not only me, it's other people.
How many times has she said she's a bad?
Okay, one thing I can tell you, if it got to the state, that means it went into debt collection.
I know that, but my question, and also it was never on the agent report, otherwise I would have found it on the agent report. So.
That's agent report is not billed. That's who we owe. Agent report is the vendors that the village owes, not village customers that owe us. That's not on the agent report. But that's what the agent report is vendors that the village owes in arrears. As far as, I don't know what to tell you, how we got to that point, I can tell you if it got to the state, that means that's Mendoza, we do turn bills over if we haven't gotten it paid. I don't know what happened. I'm sure that if you was here yesterday, I'm sure you just didn't stop at Mohan. You should ask what the bill was, what's the number of the ticket, and then they can research that, and then they can basically tell you when you got that ticket, and then you can go from there. So, but if it got to the State Department, then that's Mendoza's department, which that's what she does. We turn things over at that time. Well, not just we, the village has done that for, I think, 4 years now. So obviously that's been a matter. So it's not just don't stop at Mohan, find out where that ticket generated and how it was generated. I don't know if he would be able to tell you. If it's a grass ticket, then he should. Someone should be able to let you know. Probably Sherry, she's in charge of code. So if that was a cold ticket, then it wouldn't be, but I don't know what to tell you, that part of it, why you didn't and what happened. I just know that when you got to that point, that's because it was turned over to the state by the village. So yes, you can, I would definitely try to start with Sherry to find out where it came from, how it was originated, and if you can't get a ticket number. Like you said, you didn't get anything in the mail, so I don't know what to say, but that would be the place I would start.
The question or the concern that I'm bringing up is the process of how property owners are notified when there's a outstanding bill due. I know who I should talk to. Okay. And it's not on the agent report, it should be on receivable. Somebody should have said that my name is on receivable or something. But the process, but what I'm talking about.
You wouldn't be on any.
But the process I'm talking about is that a lot of residents come up with the same issue. They are not notified when they have outstanding debts due to owe to the village. We could have took care of that. You know, we have to find some kind of way, a new process of interacting with residents and letting them know. I mean, that's just like shaking out residents for extra $50. You know, so we need to do something about that. I want to know, you know, what kind of things.
This is not a brand new issue. This has been going. Okay, but you make it sound like it's new. There is no revenue, no anything that the village that we would get as far as knowing, unless you ask for. There's no agent report. There's no revenue report for individual bills. Individual bills are just where they are. They send notices out. If they don't respond to the notices, then they go to the next step. So you're saying that it should be something. I'm working on that. If you have a better idea, please let me know.
I don't know what the idea is.
The idea is we notified them, trustee.
Well, that's not true because I never got notice.
Okay.
And my tenants never got notice.
Notice.
So I want to know what is the procedure. I'm not the only one. I like to know what is the process and what we're going to change because I'm not the only one. You got 10,000 people out here, and I'm quite sure a lot of people got these notices because they come up here every week and ask the same question. You know, why are you charging me double for something I never got a notice for? That's not fair to residents. That's the end of my comment.
Trustee Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to cancel our meeting this week, the Ordinance Review Committee. We'll cancel it for the 8th. We've rescheduled it for March 15th, 6:30 p.m. here at the Rotunda.
Thank
That's
you.
my report.
Thank you. Trustee Jones.
This month's open gym with the council due to the Easter egg hunters on that day. And the 30th is Good Friday. That will be the stuffing of the Easter eggs and decorating. Anyone want to volunteer to show up 10 o'clock a.m. Community Center. 31st is the Easter egg hunt. That's 12 noon sharp. 12 noon sharp. Open gym this month, prior open gym was a very good turnout. We actually had a couple past college basketball players playing with some of the kids, helping out with some of the techniques and everything. So we had a pretty good turnout. And we're also working on, I got a female coach.
Oh, sure, I'll jump right in.
This is just a preliminary. We're working on a girls basketball enrichment program. So that's something to look forward to coming up soon. And that's it.
Thank you. I just wanted to inform everyone that, well, first of all, I went downtown last week. There was a meeting at the Cook County Board of Commissioners about the tax deferment for 6, 7, and 8B classifications. And they're trying to make it hard to actually apply for anyone that has, or any person that we give a class 6, 7, or 8B to. They're making it also harder for them to get that classification through the Cook County, and it's really affecting a lot of the south suburbs. So with that being said, they feel that they're losing out, or they feel that it's not going to hurt the businesses if they assess this to the businesses that are receiving the 6, 7, and 8. So that was an all-day process with them. So with that being said, tomorrow, a number of Cook County commissioners are coming out to the south suburbs. And I'll be there with a lot of the mayors. We were downtown, there was 26 mayors that actually spoke at the Cook County Board. Tomorrow there were some commissioners that felt that we asked them to come out and see for themselves how this will impact our ability to do business with people that are trying, because we're right next door to Indiana. If we don't have anything to compete with them, we can't get the businesses. So tomorrow morning, it's going to be a busload of the elected officials. If anybody would like to come go, it'll be at 10 o'clock. I'll be meeting. I'll meet here at the Village Hall at 9:30. We can go over to Linwood at 10 o'clock or 9:35, 9:40, and go from there. They're going to have a presentation. We're going to let them know exactly. Then we're going to take them out to the several areas where it's going to be impacted. That if we don't get businesses, or we don't get this deferment for the businesses, we're going to lose the businesses. So therefore, so if any of the trustees would like to go, we meet here tomorrow morning at 9:30, and we can go from there. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. That being said, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. It was moved by Trustee Brewer, seconded by Trustee Todd. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.